Throughout the Western world, governments have declared a war on cash, and with that has come a crackdown on larger value banknotes that they scapegoat terrorists and drug cartels and money launderers for, including the recent demise of the 500-euro banknote in the European Union. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you some of the largest banknotes in the world that are still available for you to park your physical cash. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson. Nomad Capitalist is all about helping 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs go where they're treated best with lower tax rates overseas, more places to store their money and protect their assets. You can learn more about all that at nomadcapitalist.com. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the largest banknotes if you like to store physical cash. Now, what I've talked about recently is I believe having cash, having liquidity is an important part of your diversification plan. We're all about diversification here at Nomad Capitalist because you never know what's going to happen next. And so for me, making sure I can continue to run my company, pay my team members, eat, those are important things to have cash when times get bad so you're not selling off assets when the chips are down. But historically, a lot of folks have liked to not only keep cash in the bank, but keep physical cash at home in a safe, something low profile. One of the things that I've enjoyed doing, just as I've traveled around the world, is I'll collect these really low-value banknotes from countries like Cambodia. I'll find the smallest banknotes I can, like they're worth 2 cents each. I'll get a stack of them, and whoo, you just keep them at home, and it's a lot of fun to have, $50 in cash that, takes up a suitcase. But in all seriousness, if you want to have cash that can actually help you in a time when you may need it, you may want to have a smaller profile of cash. And what folks have done is they've kept these large value banknotes around the house just for times like that. The Germans, the Swiss especially, are some of the cultures that have really valued that. But outside of the Western world, keeping cash is still very much a thing. The war on cash is largely limited to the Western world. It's certainly not a thing in many parts of the Gulf, China, Hong Kong, etc. And so Europe has basically written the obituary for the 500-euro note. They've blamed criminals, drug dealers, terrorists as their excuse. You and I know that's a scapegoat. They don't want you to keep your cash at home. They want it to be easier to detect. They want it to be easier to find. They want to put you at a higher risk. The United States has talked about getting rid of the $100 bill. Same thing. All the drug dealers keep the $100 bills. So if you have a $100 bill, you must be a drug dealer. You must be in a drug cartel. We've got to stop you. We want to make so you have to carry on piles of cash. Because not only do they want to stop you from keeping the cash at home, but they want to make it to where you can't buy a car, even a cheap, hoopty. You can't buy a TV, you can't buy anything with cash because they want to get rid of cash. They're against cash. They want to control you. Well, there's some countries that have decided they don't want to do that. Now, the highest value banknote in the world for a long time recently was the 10,000 Singapore dollar note. Singapore dollar right now, it's about 7,000 US dollars, fluctuates somewhere 70 to 75 cents to the US dollar. They have gotten rid of that for some of the same concerns. What I like about Singapore is they didn't come out as vociferously and say, if you have cash, you're probably a terrorist. They just said, listen, international community, etc., we're going to phase it out. There are still some out there. They're just not making any more. And if the central bank gets one, they take it out of the system. So if you can find one, you can keep it. What's interesting, though, the interesting kind of backdoor trick is that Brunei, the tiny Sultanate of Brunei, also has a 10,000 Brunei dollar note. And what's interesting about that is the Brunei dollar actually has a 1-to-1 peg with the Singapore dollar. And so while Singapore dollars are obviously much more widely traded, you can exchange Brunei dollars for Singapore dollars. So you've essentially got the ability to move back and forth. Brunei is this tiny oil-rich sultanate, I think basically says, listen, we're going to do whatever we want to. Yeah, criminals, okay, whatever. Like, we're doing what we want. You can't control us, right? And that's why it's nice to have some of these small, wealthy countries because they can just do what they want. And so the Brunei $10,000 note, the largest note that is out there in circulation today. Singapore does still, however, have one of the highest value banknotes. It actually comes in at number 3, Singapore $1,000 banknote. So that's worth $700. Again, could be worth a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on when it is. But Singapore, obviously a world-class financial system, great country for wealth haven. Very interesting. The other wealth haven in the world comes in at number 2, the 1,000 Swiss franc note. Swiss francs have, for some time, been viewed as a safe haven currency. And the Swiss government came out amidst all this chatter about getting rid of high-value currency and said, you know what? People here like to have cash. They like to have cash at home. Sometimes they like to do business in cash. We're not getting rid of it. We think, which is what a sane country would think, we think we can actually go out there and find the criminals and find other ways to reduce crime rather than telling law-abiding citizens that they've got to carry their money around in a wheelbarrow if they want to dare hold cash and not do everything through debit and credit cards. So 10,000 Brunei dollar, then the 1,000 Swiss franc, then the 1,000 Singapore dollar, 1, 2, and 3. Two other interesting options that come in that would have been valued less than the 500 euro note, which again is now being phased out. The 1,000 Emirati Dirham banknote. This is in the United Arab Emirates, home to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. What's interesting about this is the dirham is pegged to the dollar. So 1,000 Emirati dirhams is going to be worth 272 bucks, basically, US dollars at any time. And so you can get these 1,000 dirham notes. They're kind of nice looking. And obviously the UAE has been trying to position itself also as an emerging wealth haven for storing gold, for banking, for doing business in a zero-tax environment. There's a lot of interesting things in the UAE, and that includes their 1,000 dirham banknote. Number 5 on the list is from a country that you probably would have never thought of. And actually, I was surprised when I saw this because generally, countries that are emerging, smaller, emerging countries that aren't fully developed, generally don't have hugely valuable banknotes. I mean, in Malaysia, for example, you'll have the 100 Malaysian ringgit, which is worth, $22, $23, $24. That's what you're looking at in a lot of these countries. Mexico, the 500 peso note, worth $25 or thereabouts. But Armenia, the Armenian Dram, they have a 100,000 Armenian Dram banknote. It's worth a little over $200, $210, $220 in that realm. We've talked about the Armenian Dram before. I think Armenia is a very interesting up-and-coming place to hire, to bank. There are select real estate opportunities there. If you have Armenian ancestry, you qualify for a citizenship. That's a pretty straightforward process. But I've also talked about how the Armenian Dram has been, in recent years, one of the better currencies at keeping pace with the US dollar. You've seen a lot of currencies, especially in that region, that have consistently gone down. Former Soviet republics, like those in Central Asia, have seen currencies that have only gone one way, whereas the Armenian Dram, up until recently, has been pretty level, quite frankly, for a currency of its stature with the US dollar. And so the 1,000 Armenian Dram banknote, you might not want to hold it because interest rates in Armenian Dram can go as high as 10%. And so by holding these high-value banknotes, you are potentially losing a lot of interest that could offset any currency loss. But definitely one that is interesting. Actually, it's probably the most beautiful note of all of them, in my opinion. So those are 5 high-value banknotes you can store if you believe that it is your right to hold cash. A lot of Western governments clamping down on cash. They don't want you to save it. They don't want you to spend it. They want to control what you're doing. This is why we talk about legal offshore bank accounts, legally diversifying your assets overseas to other countries that reflect your values, that believe it's okay to hold cash. I can tell you all the stories about going to Hong Kong at Chinese New Year and watching people have their bundles of cash wheeled around the side because the cash people are taking out will not fit under the teller window. They've got to literally bring it around, and you see that in places like Hong Kong, places in China. If that's what you think is a good diversification option, these are 5 higher value banknotes that allow you to do it, sans the wheelbarrow. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.